Hi, we're back again. I just want to introduce our design team. This is Nate Hawk, he's our music coordinator, and Trevor Calabro, our visual designer. Um, we're going to talk a little bit about our show concept and how we arrived to this, and we'll ask you to talk about last year a little bit too, and kind of how we got to where we're at right now. Last year we got together and decided that we wanted to make Penn State exist again. They had taken 3 years of inactive, or 2 years inactive?
2 years.
2 years they were inactive due to trouble recruiting and things like that. So last year, Brendan Fulham brought us in, and we decided we're going to make this group exist. And it was cool. We had a new design team that had never really worked together before that. We worked really, really hard to recruit, and we got the group on the floor, and it was awesome. We got out to Dayton. This year, our goal is to take it to the next level. We adjusted our methodology for designing the show. Last year we did a very ambiguous show concept, Echoes. This year we decided that maybe telling a story would give us a little bit more solid content throughout the production. So we decided to go with Prodigal. Prodigal it's the prodigal son story from the Bible. It's a little bit different if you see it. It's not exactly like the Bible story. We reference the father, but that's pretty much his only role in the production, and we don't really talk about the other brother and the jealousy thing. And it's interesting, we decided to end it with him just returning home. We don't talk about how he's going to be received, which is a big part of the actual story. Our thought process there was we want to tell the story of the journey of the prodigal son and just focus on his side of things. I think our members can relate better to that. So the membership, everybody is the prodigal essentially throughout the show. Sometimes we focus on different individuals in the ensemble and make them a character. Sometimes they're all the prodigal. What we do is we kind of the prodigal's unhappy at the beginning of the show and he wants to leave home, he wants to see the world. He goes out into the world, it's not what he thought it was going to be. It's a lot harder out there than he thought it was going to be, and at the end of the show he decides to return home. And it's kind of like a story that anybody can relate to. The real world comes down on us sometimes pretty hard, and we have to find ourselves again. And that's kind of our story. You want to talk about the musical design and kind of...
Sure. Same thing he was talking about, last year to this year, a big development not only in us as a design team, understanding each other, working together better, but also the membership. The kids last year enjoyed their time here and the instruction, so they went out and recruited this year a lot better than last year, which is a great culture that we're starting to cultivate. But with that, I was able to do a little bit more intricate scoring, a little bit thicker at times, different skills that we're unable to do last year. And I think it makes the whole production a little bit more interesting. Also with the prodigal son idea, it has very clear mood shifts in each one of those movements. The show is broken down into 4 movements. The beginning is him making the decision to leave home because he's not happy with his current situation. Second part is him experiencing all the things you would experience in the outside world. All of us went to college, that kind of thing. You left home, you thought you had it all figured out, you find out you don't. The end of 2 is kind of the unraveling of his life, or what he thought was going to be his life, which leads us into part 3, where he's lost everything he has. And 3 is very down, depressing. He's struggling with the idea of saying, you know what, I was wrong, I need to go home. And through 3, he makes that decision that's his only choice. 4, which is our most run and drum, indoor drumline kind of movement, is just based off the idea of the anxiety that you'd feel going home through that journey. And that's all of 4 up until he goes through the door where he actually makes it home. So part 4 is the journey home. And musically, it made it easier for me scoring that out because it was so scripted already when it comes to moods and things.
Yeah, so visually, in the beginning of the season, we sit down and we talk about all these things. And to arrive at Prodigal was a long, convoluted path. But some big overarching things that we talk about in the very beginning is what's the group's identity? How are we gonna apply an identity to this group, especially after just being back for 2 years? So I think when we made the decision to do a literal narrative, that got us pretty far along the way of picking a story. Then straight from there, it just kind of snowballed, and we started to figure out the big moments of the show. You know, there's like 5 or 6 moments, and then the hard part is like the transitions between. And I think Nate did a really good job. Nate and I working together for the second year, I think it's really helpful to get to know another designer and the other person, and then Mark there to like arbitrate, so we can make sure that we get like the best product at the end. So we take those moments and we like rank them, like is this more of a visual moment or more of a musical moment, you know? And it's 80% visual, 20% music. That means there's only 20% of the literature content-wise that the membership is going to be. And then that means I get to write some hard drill in that part. So we want to make sure that there's always a nice balance there. And I think it reads really well. You can see it throughout the production. So, you know, if you're interested in process, which is like my thing, when you watch a show, you can probably figure it out. Like, oh, this is more visual demand than it is musical demand for certain sections. But we want to make sure that at all points we're hitting on a definite mood, telling the story. So when you come up with a literal narrative, there's kind of some limitations, as well as, you know, what it does is it narrows the focus down to something really tangible. Like, if at any point we deviate from the story, then the judging community is going to be like, hey, you're losing me here. So we need to make sure that like at all points, the prodigal son story, the portion that we're telling, is being really perfectly articulated, and we want to make sure that it follows through. And from a strictly visual standpoint, the stage is really important to me. I want to just set us up for success day one. But mostly, after we set up these moments, the transitions, that's a drill writer's worst nightmare, right? The transitions are that's where the meat and potatoes is. You know, the big moments, that getting there is just as important. And I really try to think consciously about the velocity, and really like visually portraying the music, especially on those moments that are more music heavy, right? So if we say, hey, this is like 80% musically driven, this part, that doesn't mean it's only 20% difficulty necessarily, but it's 20% of what we're trying to visualize, right? So the visualization of the music. So a lot of what I do is just like listen to the song or listen to the chunk like 100 times and be like, all right, and start to actually see visuals. And that's just what I'm trying to do is tell the story the best possible. And, you know, Nate does a great job of writing a nice backdrop for me to write some visual stuff too.
The ensemble's going to be coming back in to do a full uniform run through, give you guys a look at our show.